Hi, everybody. My name is Peter Taraka. I'm the manager of aircraft restoration, and we are here in the ARH, or the Aircraft Restoration Hangar at the Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum. Today, I'm going to be continuing with the process of adding details to the Bell Sea Cobra, which is very nearly complete. So what I'll be doing today is working on this warning flash in front of the jet intake, which you've probably seen on many jets. I have already applied 2 coats of the red, and what I'll be adding today is some of the white details on this. I may even get into the lettering, but that's, we'll see how far we get, huh? So here we go. Any questions, please hit me. I've pre-mixed this white that I'm applying with the correct amount of hardener.
What sort of paint is it?
It's an oil-based enamel. It's commonly available sign painting paint. Don't really need to add the hardener, but I just like to because it makes it a little more durable. Also, with the hardener applied, when it dries to a very hard finish, hence hardener. Some enamels that I've used, when they dry, they still remain a little sticky for quite a while, and oftentimes that attracts dirt.
Is it the same kind of paint that the military would use?
Probably not. They would not go to the measures that I'm going to here. They would probably use a stencil and perhaps some kind of polyurethane, 2-part polyurethane epoxy paint, which is sprayed on. Unfortunately, the wonderful ARH that we are in is not equipped to be spraying such a toxic paint. Now you'll notice over this dark color, this dark olive drab background color, I need to apply 2 heavyish coats of this red color to get coverage. But I don't think I'll need 2 coats with this white on the red. Covers very well.
So these markings would be the period correct for the aircraft that would be out in the field?
Period correct for the period I'm working on. This paint scheme that I'm applying is actually when this helicopter was first in development. In fact, this scheme that I'm using is number 3. You may see the 3 up there. The third of 4, the first 4 Sea Cobras that were given to the military for evaluation purposes before they placed a large order. They wanted to find out if it was capable of doing all the things that the manufacturer had promised them it would do.
And is that decal there just for safety of the air crews? I mean, why is it there?
Primarily for safety of the ground crews.
Yeah.
This placement of the intake this far off the ground might not be such a big deal, but I think the institution of these markings, the first application of them, might have come as a result of lower jet intakes, perhaps sucking something in. Hopefully something like ground equipment and not ground crew.
Would get sucked into it? Is that what, was there a vacuum that would draw things into that intake?
Yes, this would be, if the engine was running, this would be sucking big time. I can't give you a number of how many Hoovers.
Is that a technical term?
Yeah, that is, yeah. "17 Hoovers were."
All right, someone's asking a question. Do you have to use a special kind of paint for the Sea Cobra?
No,
It's regular.
no, just garden variety oil-based enamel. This brand that I'm using, I've been using for several years here, and it seems to have pretty good durability when exposed, when brought out to the flight deck and exposed to Mother Nature day in, day out. Another thing I like about this paint is that it doesn't give off a lot of fumes. And it dries relatively quickly.
Peter, I see where you're standing. Tell us about the little wings that you're on.
These stub wings were implemented or integrated into this design for a couple of reasons. They don't they're not on there to provide lift, although they may add some. The primary reason they are on there is to hold weapons. They're very, very strong. So I don't really have any reservations about standing on top of it.
And I can see that there are some points of mounting.
Yes. There are no weapons attached to it right now. Been trying to obtain some, in touch with a couple of other museums to see if they have any extras laying around. And that's not proving very productive. So I think I'm going to consult with my boss about next steps.
So what were the primary weapons? Because this helicopter is not a rescue helicopter as such. It is a infantry support or attack.
It's an attack helicopter. And probably the most common weapons you would see on a helicopter of this type would be, and these were used extensively during Vietnam and conflicts post-Vietnam, unguided missiles. Now, the effectiveness of something unguided or a dumb weapon, as it's called, is directly proportional to how close you can get to your target before releasing such a weapon.
So in this configuration, you have two seats here. So where would the person deploying those weapons be? Would he be in the front or the rear?
He would be in the front.
So he would deploy the dumb rockets or the dumb missiles.
Yes.
And what else would he or she
Would be also be targeting the cannon mounted on the front.
All right, I'm just going to pan down there and have a look at the other.
Oh yes, that's worth a viewing.
So what sort of cannon is this?
That is a,
So I can see 3 barrels.
yes. It's I've heard people mistakenly call it a minigun. A minigun is something different, but what it has in common with this gun is it's a multi-barrel rotating weapon. The primary reason it has multiple barrels is so that it can achieve a higher rate of fire, because you can only shoot so many bullets per minute through any given barrel before that barrel overheats.
And would that be like an anti-personnel weapon, or would it be an anti-material, like a take down a vehicle or an embankment of artillery or something like that?
Yeah, that would definitely be using something of that size. That's a 20 millimeter cannon shell. As an anti-personnel weapon, doesn't make sense. So something bigger, like a tank or a larger field gun, like a howitzer or something of that caliber, That's what that gun is meant to neutralize.
And how would he aim that particular weapon?
That weapon, I think it was one of the first weapons that used a fire system where the gunner, sitting in the front cockpit, wore a helmet with a gun sight on the helmet, and wherever that gunner was pointing his head and lining up to fire, the turret remotely followed his head, which nowadays might not seem so spectacular, but in 1971 was a big deal.
State of the art kind of.
Yes.
Okay, someone's asking, when did the Intrepid acquire the Sea Cobra?
The Sea Cobra came to Intrepid in 1992. It's the only aircraft in our collection that came here under its own power. It was landed on the flight deck, and after a brief ceremony, the pilots went home via ground transportation.
So what branches of the military would use a piece of hardware like this?
Well, when the Cobra first debuted, it was a single engine machine. And both the Army and the Marines operated the Cobra at that time. But since it was the early 70s and Cobras were being deployed in Vietnam, Marines found themselves operating Cobras from aircraft carriers. And the Sea Cobra, with two engines, was addressing concerns of a lot of single engine flying over open ocean, which is a risky thing. So with two engines, they were able to widen that margin of safety. Did I mention the Sea Cobra has two engines?
Well, yeah, what type of engines does it have? They're not like gas engines, are they? It's something a little bit more special?
No, they're turbine engines. It's a jet engine. And it's a very popular engine. I don't know if you've ever heard of a PT6. It's Pratt & Whitney. I believe these were Pratt & Whitney of Canada made the engines in this machine. It's one of the few aircraft we have on board that still has its engines. The engines have been removed from a few airplanes that we have.
So it wouldn't take much to put this thing back in the air in terms of like a full restoration?
No, if you've got enough money. You can make anything happen. No, but seriously, this machine hasn't flown since 1992. To get it back to flight-worthy status, so much of it would need to be inspected that the man hours alone, just taking the thing apart and putting it back together, you've spent enough money to buy yourself a new helicopter. So, yeah.
Now, the military don't use this anymore, but this particular model, they've moved on from here, haven't they?
They have moved on from here.
So I can imagine a lot of them have been made of this particular model.
I don't know the total production numbers. I'll have to look that up. If that was a viewer asking that question, I'll get back to them.
Me. That was
Oh,
just
it's just
me.
you? All right.
No one important, Peter.
Yeah. Next week. No, I'm curious. I'm going to look it up. I think of the airplanes, in terms of production numbers of the aircraft that we have on board, I think the MiG-21 out there takes the prize at over 11,000 of them built.
Do you know where this particular helicopter served? What conflicts or?
I do. I was just looking at that in the file. This aircraft has what could be called probably a semi-unglamorous history. It was used, I think, primarily as a training machine. Its records show it operating between 3 military bases, one in California, one in Texas, and one in Arizona for its whole 20-plus year career. Except for, there's a very brief, less than 1 year stint somewhere in Japan. So I'm pretty confident that it did spend time on an aircraft carrier at some point.
Now, just to your right, in that there's a circular dial.
Yeah.
Is that the gas cap?
I will be painting that a little later in this episode. If I make any headway, if you stop asking me questions. No. Yes, that is the fuel inlet right there. And next to it is a little receptacle where a probe, before any aircraft gets refueled, it needs to be grounded, because flying through the air, it picks up all kinds of static electricity, and you don't want a spark when you're approaching with the gasoline nozzle. So you ground the airplane and then you refuel it, the helicopter.
How long can this is just another question from me. Don't worry if you don't know it, but how long would an aircraft like this, with a full tank of gas, how long would it stay in the air for? How many miles can you arrange for something like this?
Well, we don't, in the flying world, you don't really talk about range as much as endurance. Because depending on what Mother Nature's doing, the wind situation has a huge effect on range. So
Weapons carried, all that kind of, like weight.
right, depending on the loading, it has a huge effect. That also has a big effect. The loading, not so much the wind, but what kind of load you're carrying, is a multi-engine aircraft's single engine performance. Because if let's say you're a general aviation pilot and you want to, I'm interested in buying a multi-engine airplane, but because this single engine flying is more stressful than I'd like it to be. So I'd always like to have a backup engine. And then you read into the specifications about the airplane, and you learn about its single engine performance. So, well, if your airplane that carries 4 people, if you've got 4 people in it and one of the engines stops running, that one engine isn't enough to maintain altitude. So it's always a trade-off. My brother, who is a commercial pilot, I remember a long time ago when he was flying a twin that had this not such a robust performance with a single engine, would say, yeah, the second engine, the reason the second engine is there is to get you to the crash site. That's my funny story of the day.
We got a question from out there. What other restoration work has your team been doing on the Sea Cobra?
Well, that's a great question. We've been very lucky in that this aircraft hasn't really needed a lot outside of the cosmetic makeover. And my colleague here, Kate Good, she did a fantastic job of detailing, thoroughly cleaning, rust, corrosion preventative on the engines and the cockpits. But outside of cosmetics, this machine has not needed a lot of work.
Are you guys going to be painting the canopy on this one?
Not on this machine. I sort of hate to say it, but this canopy, not that it's not worth saving, but Kate did such a fantastic job of beautifying the internals that I think visitors to the museum will enjoy looking at something like this. Whereas several of the aircraft out there where we have painted the canopies, they're kind of stripped inside. There's nothing to see anyway. So, I mean, and the primary reason we paint the canopies is to preserve what is left. So yeah, it's a decision. We may end up painting the canopy on this machine at a later date. But for now, we're just going to play it by ear. Now you may see a couple of areas that I'm skipping here, and that's because some really detailed stuff needs to be done around the lettering, which you probably can't see, but I've traced on here with a white paint pen.
Let me see if I can get in close to that. Yeah. I'll take the camera off.
Don't fall asleep over there, Kate. Kate, don't fall asleep over there. Oh, I thought you were asleep. I'm sorry.
Your life, Peter.
Oh, so here you see, I don't know, can you see that lettering?
Yep.
Okay. Here you see the stencil I created using one of our stencil cutters in the back room to make this lettering. And I just traced it on there as a guide to hand paint it. Liam, now I'm going to climb down. I need to paint the cap and this circle yellow.
Okay.
Now I can see little areas on here where the paint is not adhering as much as I would like it to adhere. And there's an explanation for that. And that is something like this, an area like this on the helicopter, which has been saturated with jet fuel so many times in a row that you can do all you want to do in terms of removing an old finish or giving it alcohol rub down after alcohol rub down in an attempt to remove those oils that are present on the metal. They still remain. So what might happen here is several coats may be required. First coat, I'll probably end up sanding most of it off. We'll see what happens.
right, we have one last question, Peter.
Let's hear it.
Okay, how many times a year do you need to paint your aircraft on the flight deck?
Well, hopefully, if a good enough job is done, it may be years. It all depends on the aircraft. There are so many variables when a coat of paint is applied. Humidity, temperature, if you're able to do the job in one shot or do part of it one day, part of it the next day. So that all these variables have a sometimes dramatic effect on how long a paint job lasts out on the flight deck. There's an airplane out there that we painted 2 years ago, and it's already starting to show signs of needing touch-up, where the paint is we call it failing, or it's not adhering to the surface the way we might have hoped. Now, on the other side of the coin, there's an airplane out there that my boss painted, I don't know, 15 years ago, I'm guessing, and it still looks beautiful. I don't know his secret.
All right. Well, that would be the last question.
Okay.
I'll let you wrap it up and we'll say goodbye to everyone.
All right. All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad you could pay a visit and see what we do in here. We love our job, and we love the idea of being able to share it with the viewing public. So see you next week. Same time, same channel.